This is Jack Fishman behind the camera, speaking with oboist Daniel Rios. Daniel, you are from San Antonio, but currently a student up in Cleveland. Tell us how you started on oboe and what you're doing now.
Well, I started on oboe like a lot of kids in the area. Went into 6th grade, and you can either do band, choir, or orchestra. And I decided to do band and ended up with an oboe in my hands.
So there was no great dream of the sound of the oboe?
Not particularly with the oboe. I kind of joke I was flattered into it. I had a piano teacher whose son played the oboe, and she recommended I go in and talk to the directors about it. And they started talking about how they like to have their best and brightest students do it. And, you know, it's nice stuff to hear when you're 11, so.
And you studied with the San Antonio Symphony's Mark Ackerman?
Yep, yeah, I did. I started studying with Mark when I was about in 8th grade and studied with him for the next 5 years or so.
Then you went off and got a degree in music in Boston, and now you're in Cleveland getting a master's degree.
Yes, yeah.
And the reason why we're getting together is I learned that you are about to play with the great Cleveland Orchestra, considered one of the greatest orchestras in the world. And how did that come about?
Well, I've been in Cleveland for the past year working on my master's, and I study with Frank Rosenwein, who's the principal oboist in the orchestra. And the piece that we're playing next week is The Rite of Spring, which calls for 5 different oboe players, and the orchestra has 4, and they needed an extra oboe player, and Frank thought of me and just gave me a call, and things worked out great.
Now you've played with the San Antonio Symphony. This week you're playing with the San Antonio Opera. Do you think it's going to be different to play with the Cleveland Orchestra, and if so, how?
I think a little bit. The Cleveland Orchestra is one of a handful of orchestras, I think, in the world that has a very established tradition and very particular things about it musically and just kind of traditionally that are unique to it. And the tradition there has been very important since George Zell conducted the orchestra about 50 or 60 years ago. And it just has a very unique sound and a very unique way of doing things, and it should be very exciting, I think.
Now, has your teacher sort of explained the secrets?
A little bit. I mean, I think some of the things do come through an individual playing, but a lot of it is, there's just this great homogeny throughout the orchestra, and actually I've learned a lot from other members of the orchestra. Joshua Smith, the principal flautist, has been there for 20 years and studied with John Mack, who is my teacher's teacher, the great principal oboist there for 35 years. And for about 15 years, John Mack told Josh Smith how they did everything in the orchestra, and that it's sort of that kind of, just passing down from one musician to another that really distinguishes that orchestra, I think, amongst other orchestras in this country.
And that's really somewhat the difference between conservatory training and a university. Yep. The idea that you're actually being handed down knowledge from an individual player. Maybe 2-3 teachers back, it goes back to Brahms.
Oh, exactly. Particular to the oboe, my teacher in Boston, John Ferrillo, went to the Curtis Institute, and his teacher, John Delancey, studied with Marcel Tabuteau, who is the father of American oboe playing, and really created this tradition of American-style oboe playing. But the way he taught his students at Curtis in the 1920s was the same way that oboists have been taught at the Paris Conservatory since the late 1800s.
That sounds fascinating. Well, who's conducting your concert?
Franz Welser-Moos, the music director of the Cleveland Orchestra, and the Vienna State Opera is starting this fall.
Sounds like a great experience, and let us know how it goes.
Definitely.
Congratulations, and enjoy the opera this week and the Cleveland Orchestra next week.
I certainly will. Thank you.